Hello everyone, my name is Sandra. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you a book review or a book discussion. I don't really review books, I feel like. I just talk about the plot and the characters and what I liked about it. I generally try to keep it positive, so it is just a book discussion. Quick aside, because I'm the absolute worst at just coming right out and telling you what the topic is that I'm reviewing, so just inserting this here. I am talking about Manacled by author SenLinYu. This book was recommended to me by a sorority sister from college, Megan, so shout out Megan, a while back, and she suspected that I would like it, and I did. So thank you, Megan. And back to my discussion. So I'll start off kind of non-spoilery, and then I'll jump into maybe some spoilery things, but I'm going to try and keep it pretty non-spoilery. The book in question is one that I did not expect to pick up as my first read of the year, because I was expecting to read Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. But this is also not my typical book. Full disclaimer, I have never read fanfiction before, and so this book is Dramione fanfiction, so Harry Potter world, Draco Malfoy, and Hermione Granger specifically. There's a lot of fanfiction out there. I was pleasantly surprised. I was blown away by the quality of the writing. Obviously, there's going to be some redundancies and stuff because the way that this book was originally released back between 2018 to 2019, it was a weekly and bi-weekly, very episodic type of release. And so just like a television series, it's going to have like some redundant recap type of things for major plot stuff that's happened. So it does have some of that. I believe the author, SenLinYu, she had been typing this book out on her notes app when she was a new mom. So it's going to have some typos and things like that. But I thought those kinds of errors aside, and the fact that this was a very nuanced kind of release, right, with it being episodic, that the quality of this story was fantastic. I was blown away by the emotional depth of it. And this is a dark romance. It's adult fantasy, and there are content warnings for graphic violence, rape, torture. And this book doesn't ever shy away from the fact that it is about those things. But what surprised me the most is I went into this thinking it was more of a dark romance, and I walked away from it knowing that the book is a war story, and it focuses on the trauma that these two characters experience as they fall in love and get together. So it was a very long book, 900-ish pages. I think the word count was over 370,000 words. It's 77 chapters, which sevens are important in the Harry Potter world, but 77 chapters, and this includes a series of present day chapters and then like 38 flashback chapters, and then we come back to present day, and then there's 4 epilogues or something like that to kind of wrap up the story. It kind of has a happily ever after. That's where the dark romance part comes in, but it's such a sad, somber kind of happily ever after. And it's a story that haunts you. It's written so well. These characterizations of these people in the Harry Potter world were done just so perfectly. Like you can sit there and imagine them on page and they're exactly how you saw them on screen, or, if you read the books. There was just so much to love about it. Guys, I finished this book within like 2.5, 3 days. I could not physically put this book down. I was up until like 2 a.m. every night reading this book, was just flipping through the pages. I cried. It was an emotional pummeling, but I'm glad that I read it because I do want to compare what has changed whenever Alchemised comes out in fall of this year. If you're wanting to find a copy of this book, I don't know where you could get a copy of it. It used to be available on AO3 or Archive of Our Own, just for free because you can't profit off of fanfiction. So it used to be available there, PDF, EPUB, MOBI formats. The author has since taken it down because the book will be now released under Del Rey Books. So I don't know where you can find it if you're trying to find a physical, like a digital copy of the book. You might check places like Reddit, and I think I read somewhere where there are different Etsy shops that might be selling like formatted text files for the book for those people who want to go create a physical binding of this book. So you can purchase things like that and maybe get it that way. It might be, $5-10, something like that. So that's another option you have if you have to have the physical format of it. Another option that I will say is the author shared that this book was available in an audio format, and you don't need Spotify Premium to have this. There's a playlist on Spotify that anyone can listen to. There might be ads or something because it is free Spotify, but there is a Manacled audiobook playlist that anyone can go see, at least at the time of this recording. So I would definitely check that out too if you are keen on audiobooks. But with me being brand new to this fanfiction world, I'm really curious to see how the book has changed from what I read from the author's experience in turning this book into a traditionally published book. She has spent a lot of time kind of getting rid of all of those redundant recaps that are very typical for episodic release kind of stories. And so she's been combing through it that way. But from what I remember in the article that I read somewhere, Del Rey was okay giving her the blessing to have like a one-off standalone thicker book. So I fully expect still a thick book of some kind. All that we really know right now about Alchemised, which is the name of the book coming out in fall based on this fanfiction, is that it is a dark romance, enemies to lovers, fantasy war story involving alchemy and necromancy. And the story follows a healer with amnesia who is taken prisoner and falls in love with the enemy. And so it's her journey to regain her memories, which is very much parallel to Hermione's journey in this book and her experience with Draco. That is all we know so far, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So you might be wondering, where exactly does this book pick up in the Harry Potter world? Is it sharing a lot of the same background, plot points, that kind of thing? In this fan fiction, Manacled, the story really veers off into its own thing during Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, you had Severus Snape killing Dumbledore. This one proceeds as if Draco Malfoy succeeded in assassinating Dumbledore. And so Lord Voldemort wins the war. Harry Potter, all of the Weasleys, everyone is dead except for Hermione and some others. Severus Snape is still alive. Dolores Umbridge is still alive, and she's a very evil, sinister person in this book. So Order of the Phoenix is where this story picks up and starts changing into its own thing. But what I loved about this book is because it felt like this very dark adult version of the story that we all grew up with, and it felt very authentic to that foundation that was set with that story. And for a lot of us, looking back at the Harry Potter series as a whole, it's so, dark versus light and good versus evil, and it's this very nicely wrapped up, almost bubblegum kind of happy ending for everyone, and love and kindness conquers all. But this is a very dark alternate take on what would happen. And so in this plot of Manacled, Voldemort won, Harry Potter's dead, and basically Hermione and a lot of the other good people that attended Hogwarts have now been forced into this repopulation effort for magical people with magic blood. And that's how Hermione ends up in the clutches of Draco Malfoy, who is now very high up. In fact, he's like the right-hand man of Voldemort and the Dark Army, or the Death Eaters. And so what I love about this story is you still have the killing curse, and you still have all of the Harry Potter callbacks to different characters and things that happened in the earlier books. Even the characterizations, whenever there's a scene with like Snape or Hermione or Ginny, Arthur Weasley, even Ron, his proclivities for the opposite sex whenever he was kind of going through, when he was a teenager, kind of noticing girls, that kind of thing. Like, the characterization of all of these people is just so spot on to how we remember them. It keeps it very truthful in that way. An important thing that I wanted to call out is that there are some reading options that you have if you find a copy of Manacled and you're able to read it. So I'm just going to call this like Hermione's Way. If you read it just cover to cover in the order that it's presented to you, it's going to feel very broken and confusing, and there's going to be a lot of gaps that you don't understand and a lot of mystery and things that are being revealed very slowly over time. And to me, that's very much being in Hermione's experience in this story, because she has experienced so much trauma. This isn't really a spoiler, but when we pick up with her story, she has been in sensory deprivation torture for 16 months, and her brain has been through a lot. And the way that she has compartmentalized and closed off parts of herself is how she's been able to survive. And so as a reader, when you read it just cover to cover, it very much feels that way. You don't really know what's going on. You just feel like there's something major that you're missing. And it's very much how Hermione's experiences in the story. And then there's another way that people call the pain way, or the Cruciatus Way, which is you read the flashback chapters first. So I think it's chapters 26 through the last flashback chapter, flashback 38. So read those and then go back through chapters 1 through 25 at the beginning, and then jump over to, I think it's like chapter 64, 65, something like that through the end of the book. So if you read it that way, then you're going to get like the full backstory of when Harry was alive, and Ron and all of the Weasleys, and just the relationships, that, the conflicts and everything that Hermione had with Ron and Harry and everyone. And then it's going to be a very chronological thing that happens with her getting tortured and then falling into this repopulation program. So that's the other way that you can experience this book. So when I talk about how true to Harry Potter Manacled is, there's the ability of legilimency, which is seeing into people's minds, their thoughts and things that they're hiding. And then on the flip side of that, there's occlumency, which is being able to kind of shore up and create a barrier wall off your mind so that the people using that ability are unable to penetrate your mind. So this story has a lot of that. And that's kind of what results in Hermione being unable to tap into her memories. So things like that just make this story feel really rich and authentic to Harry Potter. There's the use of different spells. There's port keys. There's the Death Eaters and the dark marks that they bear when they take the vow to Voldemort. So it has a lot of that. The notion of Horcruxes and how, in Harry Potter, Voldemort or Tom Riddle, he learned that if he was going to obtain a sort of immortality, that it would involve murdering others, because when you commit murder, it breaks off a piece of your soul and you use that into, putting into a Horcrux. So these special items that are able to bring Voldemort back, that concept is still explored very deeply in this book and is very integral to the plot. Just to give you a little taste of the writing, because I was most surprised by the level of writing that it was. It was super emotional. It was dark. It just sucked you right in. And so I have like a handful of quotes that are completely out of context. I think they should be, for the most part, be pretty non-spoilery. So first quote is, "The potion blocked everything she realized. She wasn't sad or angry or ashamed. Her grief was gone, her rage. She was nothing. She simply existed in cold nothingness. She looked up at Malfoy. Is this what it feels like to be you?" And then another quote is, "Survival did not require Hermione to be intact, to be decent, to be herself. Survival would carve away any part of her that made enduring harder. If I'd known what pain you'd cause me, I never would have taken you." And then there's, "In some respects, the Malfoys are closer to being dragons than they are wizards. They do not share. They are obsessive about what they regard to be theirs. You're like a rose in a graveyard. I wonder what you could have turned into without the war." And then this one is probably one of my favorite quotes in the book. "If he's a monster, then I am his creator. What did you think was the source of all his rage?" And so that's kind of a taste of what to expect from the writing of this book. I touched on the content warnings for this book because there is a lot of rape and torture, just graphic violence. Even the way that the relationship that develops between Hermione and Draco unfolds, it never feels like a spicy or smutty romance at all. The rape scenes, to put it as what it is, they feel very clinical. I think that term is used in the book, but those scenes as they happen feel very clinical. They feel very wrong. And it feels very authentic to what this story is that's being told. If you are someone who can handle those types of dark subject matters and you're interested in a different take on the Harry Potter world or an alternate ending, a very grown-up, different ending, I would say definitely pick up Manacled by SenLinYu, because this book still, almost a week later after finishing it, I'm still thinking about this book all the time. And it kind of leaves you feeling a little bit hollow. But I think that's just testament to SenLinYu as a writer. And I am very much looking forward to picking up Alchemised and seeing how that changes. So if you can get your hands on a digital copy of this book, or even like a bound copy, because there are people out there that on their own dime are going out and binding a physical copy of this book so that they can have it in their collection. If you can get your hands on one of those, go for it, because I think the story is so worth it and it's so good. If you're just kind of hunkered down, it's wintertime, here it's snowing, if you're just in a reading mood and want something that's just going to suck you in and hurt, this is going to be that story for you. This has opened the door to fan fiction for me. So now I just kind of want to dip my toe in even more and see what else I can find. So there is the Rights and Wrongs trilogy, which was published under a different pen name on AO3 by Julie Soto. So I want to pick those up and read them. I have them on my Kindle so that I can read those too at some point. But that is also going to be released this year too. So the first book, and that's going to be released as a trilogy. The Evermore trilogy, I think is what it's called, and the first book is Rose and Chains, and that comes out in July 2025. So I'll also be picking that one up, but I will be reading the fanfiction versions of the books first. If you have read Manacled, let me know what you thought. If you read other fanfiction, what are some other ones kind of like this that I could get into? Because I know nothing about this area. This is brand new to me, and now I see the allure of reading these kinds of stories. And it just offers a different perspective on things that we grew up, and had a completely different take on as a kid. And now that we have lived life a little bit and we have a different perspective on life and not so sunshiny and rainbows, just looking for those. So if you have those, share them with me. I hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review of Manacled by SenLinYu. Do some research to try and get your hands on it. Check out subreddit, check out Etsy, try to get your hands on a digital file if you can, because I think it'd be worth it to read it before the traditional book comes out. So until next time, stay warm, my friends, and happy reading. Bye!